when I first joined Dreamers and Doers, one of the first like offers I did was 20 to 30-minute consultation, sort of one-on-one with e-commerce brands, because I used to run planning for 2 apparel divisions of a large conglomerate called Global Brands Group, which is a Hong Kong-based company that literally makes every type of product from like beauty, shoes, sleepwear, apparel, etc. And so in that role, for those who don't know, like merchandise planning, it partners with sales, and the main goal is to maximize profitability, because obviously like salespeople are incentivized on like commissions and volume. And sometimes there isn't always the notion for building a healthy business year on year, because you just want to ship to hit targets in the current year. So what my role was at a corporate level was forecasting and managing our budgets and all of that, but also at an account specific level, I worked with a lot of different retailers, ranging from like working with our Amazon team, but I will be clear to say I'm not like an Amazon expert, but just working with them in terms of the nature of their business and recommending assortments, as well as your major department stores like Macy's, Dillard's. I worked with the Bay in Canada, and I've also worked on mass, so big box stores like Target. And my job while working with them was basically partnering with the buyer and the planner on the account side to make sure the assortment was as profitable as possible, making sure we had the right product in there for their customer, and then also making sure that we were monitoring their retail sales to capitalize on like replenishment or additional incremental order opportunities and stuff like that. And then I now am actually working on my own travel startup, but 2 days a week, I'm actually a business analyst supporting the SVP of merchandising and strategy at Perry Ellis, which is one of my old companies. And they own a number of brands, but I also work on menswear for the Perry Ellis menswear brand and Original Penguin men's brands, kind of doing similar things in merchandising analytics. So I saw a lot of people had questions around like price point, if there's a potential strategy to sell wholesale over time, tiers of distribution that may be friendly to younger brands and all of that. And I also tried to talk to some of my colleagues yesterday where I wasn't necessarily my wheelhouse, to see if I could get some additional intel for you. So I will stop there. And Shelly, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm Shelly Van Riper. I have a women's elevated basics clothing line. So I have cashmere scarves, Italian jersey t-shirts, and menswear inspired blazers. I spent 20-something years in corporate America, mostly in healthcare, doing business planning and strategy, government affairs, philanthropy, grant writing, fundraising. I quit my job at 40 and commuted to New York for about 1.5 years to start my line. So all of my designs and patterns and everything were done in New York. My production is done in New York. I'd love to kind of take it to the next level. I was actually accepted in 2016, Macy's Emerging Designer Program. Knowing that my price point was too high for Macy's, I still went because I thought it would be a fabulous experience, which it was. You know, it's a blessing and a curse, right? I think part of the reason why Macy's is imploding is because, you know, they want to put an emerging designer in 5 doors and online, which would require $500,000 up front for me over an 18-month cycle before I'd ever even see a check. And that's before chargebacks and discounts and whatnot. So learning whether it's Macy's or Bloomingdale's or Saks, what really it takes for an emerging brand to be in a big box store, it's pretty overwhelming unless you're doing kind of a $25 t-shirt or something like that, because the risk for a startup, we all think that's where we want to be. But it's a lot more challenging. I was also invited to participate in Saks Emerging Designer Competition in 2017, I think, and didn't make it. But again, it was a great experience because I kind of started my company thinking, oh, I'll put up my website and people will find me and it'll be great. And then you realize in reality, you're $250,000 in debt and no one knows who you are. And SEO is a big deal. And even in the last 4 years, so much has changed with digitally native vertical brands, you know, the Warby Parkers, the Allbirds. all of these brands have so much money behind them.
Yeah.
And I don't have that. And so my thing is I have a very high quality product that I have a lot of loyalty around. But at the end of the day, if no one knows who you are and they know who Smythe is or Rag and Bone, why would they pick you? And so when you even start talking to some of even the bigger boutiques, they're like, well, what's your Instagram following? What's, you know, what kind of hits are you getting? And I'm kind of a one-man shop at this point. So, you know, while I have made it going on to 5 years, it is one of those things of how does an elevated brand really actually make it without the backing of investors and this churning. I mean, the good news is probably 99% of the world hasn't seen my website. So if I do have a similar, you know, the blazers on there for an extended amount of time, then it's not so bad. But like you said, moving inventory and getting the sales, you know, I have to move product, and just not having truckloads of money to do that, whether it's Instagram ads or, you know, influencers. I can't give away 25 blazers to influencers and hoping that kind of it's going to work. So I kind of vomited a bunch of information there, but then I'll stop there. And that's kind of, you know, where I am.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Leona, you want to go?
I'm Leona. Before, I've been a member of Dreamers and Doers maybe about a year, a little bit over a year. Unfortunately, I joined and then the hurricane hit the Caribbean. So right now I'm in the British Virgin Islands.
Oh, wow.
But I'm in a hotel because my house was destroyed and my store was destroyed. So
I'm sorry.
Thank you. So I'm here now. My sister and I have a department store in the BVI. We're going on just past 8 years in October. But last year we had 2 locations and we're starting our 3rd. And with the hurricane, it completely destroyed the 2nd location. Like it's just a slab of cement right now.
Oh, wow.
So we're in the process of rebuilding. And also we're planning to do an e-commerce site, which the hurricane really showed the necessity and urgency for that because I have so much inventory now and no place to store it.
Yeah.
And people, this last year was kind of hard because we do a lot of home decor. So we're kind of like a Target, Wayfair type of store. We do groceries, but mostly home decor, furniture, curtains, that type of stuff. Some beauty and apparel. And because of the hurricane, we didn't have a place to store. We couldn't really ship in large containers like we normally do. And now people are starting to rebuild and everyone wants better and newer stuff, higher price items. We were kind of like mid-mid and now we're going from to higher. And I can't bring in, especially when you talk about trendy things, it's harder to bring all that stuff in because I have to pay duty on it. I have to pay duty on the shipping. And then I also have to figure out how to store it. And if it doesn't sell, I don't have a second resource to liquidate. I'm stuck with it. So we're moving into the e-commerce space now, trying to we connected with a bunch of vendors so we could do similar to drop shipping. But once I got my first orders in, I can order, do custom orders. So that's where we're moving to now. We're going to rebuild the 2nd location and expand on some of the outer islands. But we just got to get through the holiday, which is our big part of the year, which I'm freaking out because I'm like, I need to make it through this holiday to kind of go through with the other plans. So.
Oh, wow. Well, good luck. It sounds like you have, plans laid out. So it's just a function of, I was thinking as you were talking.
Strategist in marketing and advertising. I've done that for like 15 years.
Okay.
So, right. But this whole retail e-commerce space is a little bit different for us, and the inventory planning. I think we've operated for 8 years without really strategically planning our inventory. We've just bought stuff based on the need of our customers. If someone needed it, we put it on a list, we bought it. And that's a big challenge for us because everything is cash flow.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Leanne, am I pronouncing it right?
Liang, yes. Hi.
Liang.
Hi. So my background is in design and creative direction. I've worked in marketing, but never really on e-commerce or for fashion. In the past, I was the creative director for Mind Body Green, which is a health and wellness site. and Soma water, home product, and have previously worked at Condé Nast. And my husband and I are starting a sustainable resort wear line launching, we're hoping next April. We're planning on sourcing the fabrics from Japan and having it made in New York. So the price points are a little bit high, but we're doing direct to consumer to cut down that wholesale and retail gap. So we're hoping to price kind of like our items between like our lowest cost item probably be around like 180, and then majority of them would be between like 250 and 350.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we're just trying to figure out how to target and learn who our customer might be. It's a price point that, like, personally for me is a little bit higher than I normally shop in terms of like for resort. So wanting to figure that out, and especially how sustainability can play into that.
Okay. Quick question. When you say resort wear, are you talking like caftans and swim and layering knits, or like what exact items?
Yeah. So just like full disclosure, we're totally bootstrapping this. So we were like, well, if we're only going to make 12 pieces, what can we make? So we're just doing dresses for the most part.
Okay.
So it's like long dresses, short dresses, like 2 tops and 2 bottoms.
Okay.
So sorry to interrupt, Alexandria. I think there are people in the waiting room
Oh,
trying to
whoops.
access the call.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Should we go to Alice? Hello? Alice? Do you want to give an intro? Oh, it's okay. Is anyone, Alyssa, maybe? Are you able to talk?
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much for organizing this. So I'm the founder of Hero Backpack.
Sorry, Alyssa, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just realized for the intros, I want to make sure we have time to get into the guts. So just for future introductions, let's try to keep it to like 2 minutes so that we can really like dig into your questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm the founder of Hero Backpacks. Each backpack shares an empowering story of a hero who changed the world, featuring women, people of color, and immigrants, and provides one day of school for a girl in a developing country. And I sell primarily through e-commerce.
Awesome, thank you. Ilana? Are you talking? We can't hear you. Okay, Evelyn, do you want to introduce yourself? Evelyn and Alana, you're both on mute. I'm not sure.
Hi, this is Ilana. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome.
So we're just giving introductions of sort of a very brief background and then summary of businesses.
Oh, cool. Do you want me to go? This is Ilana. Sorry.
Yes, please.
Hi, guys. My name is Ilana Seed. I'm the founder and CEO of Sunday Morning. Sunday Morning is a direct-to-consumer home goods company, and so we sell things like pajamas, bed linens, towels, decorative accessories for home. And our reason for being is to really help people enjoy their homes.
Okay, nice. Thank you. Who's left? Evelyn, can you?
Yeah, hi, sorry I'm joining late. I also forgot that it was gonna be visual, so like I'm trying to hide. I have not gotten ready today. So hi everyone. I'm first of all, thank you so much for hosting this call. I'm Evelyn and I own Pivot, which is beautiful functional clothing for work and beyond. So what my partner and I do is make we combine luxury design with advanced fabrics for clothes that you can wear everywhere, every day.
Nice. Thank you. Have we covered everyone? If you're on the call and haven't given a brief intro, just chime in, please. Okay.
Hi. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, it's Alice.
Hi, Alice.
I've been running a direct-to-consumer women's wear brand for the past 3 years called Uniform. Sorry, my dog. But I'm kind of winding that down and starting a new company. It's a knit sneaker company that I'm planning on launching next holiday, hence my interest in the call.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Nice. Okay, so I guess why don't we go to, it sounds like a lot of you, based on the questions and stuff, have sort of questions regarding just general awareness and driving traffic. And I'd like, in a way, for this to be a collective brainstorm, since that's sort of the most immediate need. We're in holiday 18 right now. But as I mentioned in the comments, I'm not a digital marketer per se, but I do think that if I hear your maybe specific tactics and what worked or didn't work, I might be able to chime in just based on what I've seen from my experience with other brands and their promotional strategies. But I also felt like it would be a good opportunity to crowdsource with everyone in the room, because things might have people might have suggestions based on encountering the same thing. So in terms of, maybe we should talk about in terms of ways to drive traffic or cross-promotional strategies that have worked for people in the past. Definitely it sounded like there were a lot of questions around awareness and sort of feeling like people weren't getting the best bang for their buck on, you know, Facebook and Instagram ads, especially when you don't have the budgets of some of the big players. What I've known people to do well is it requires a little bit of mining on your part, and I don't know how well you can do it with like not that many weeks to Christmas. But one thing I know I've seen a brand do is within their assortment of items, focus on the thing that they think is the most giftable based on their consumer traction to date and based on consumer feedback, and put all their messaging around that item. And then once you get on the homepage, just try to increase average basket size by encouraging tie-in to other items. Because I think especially if you're selling things that are basics, or where obviously there are a lot of different vendors that provide the breadth of product that you provide, you kind of have to go with like your highest USP item and try to use that in your promotional messaging, if that makes sense. Hello?
I think that's helpful. I would be interested to know too, are a lot of people using Instagram and doing it successfully, or Facebook ads, or where are most people, you know, gathering their buyers or conversion from? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, so I mentored a beauty brand in XRC Labs, and which is a accelerator program affiliated with like Parsons and Kurt Salmon in New York. And I feel like she was having like moderate success with Instagram, but part of why she ended up deploying a wholesale strategy is to increase her awareness. So the traffic that she was driving to her site was loyal and she was seeing reorders, but just the sheer numbers that she was getting at her revenue rate and with her like the size of her coffers, it wasn't maybe performing the way you might hope. And it's just hard to cut through the clutter now versus several years ago. I think Instagram used to be a lot easier. But what I think what a lot of brands are doing now is basically like before they even launch, putting a lot of editorial up and like getting followers, or kind of the strategy that like a Glossier did, which is basically like get a blog where it's like creative ways to repurpose a basics wardrobe or something like that. And then when you launch the product that ties into the content recommendation, that's where I think people are now having more success with like platforms like Instagram, because they already were providing a value before they were trying to sell you anything. But it's funny because yesterday I was actually approached randomly on Instagram by this Australian e-commerce brand that was asking me to be an influencer. And I don't know if this is a model that could work. I mean, again, it's not going to probably work in the next 3 weeks, but essentially it looks like they were going through women who like had an interesting story to them, and maybe kind of were their aesthetic in terms of the types of clothes that they were posting in their photos, and asking you to be an influencer, but not in the traditional, like, I run a blog and that's how I pay my bills type of way, but basically a deep discount on what you buy, and then a % of sales from anyone in your following that buys from the site using your promo code.
Okay.
So to the extent that you have very loyal followers, even if they only, if your customers, for example, have like 1,000 friends or followers each, and they're loyal customers, there could be a way to try to monetize your existing customer base by, they're going to buy your clothes anyway. So you try out a strategy of some of the people that your brand may follow back on Instagram. Look for people who might have the, you know, a high engagement rate or a high number of followers based on the number of likes on their photos, and then just try, especially if they post a lot of selfies, or like their setting is very much your guy or girl persona of your brand. And this particular brand that reached out to me, they had like 500,000 followers on Instagram, and I had never heard of them. So I don't know if that may be a successful strategy for them.
And when you reference wholesale, are most of you guys talking about wholesale as in boutiques, or are you talking about pop-ups, or, well, not pop-ups, but department stores? What when you say wholesale, what specifically are you mentioning?
Yeah, it could be a range. I think for a lot of digitally native brands, they try to find other digital channels to sell their goods. So, you know, not Amazon isn't for everyone, but obviously that's always an option that you can vendor manage yourself. But just finding, like, I actually found an article that I'll try to paste into the chat, but a colleague of mine, somebody in the questions asked about what are e-commerce sites that are friendly to emerging brands, because, you know, if you try to go department store route, there's the whole risk of having to give back money and vendor margin and all of that. But essentially it was a blog in hold on one second. It was a blog in one of the editorial sites that basically talked about local boutiques that had a very strong e-commerce presence. And so I went on a few of their sites, and there was one in Miami that was carrying like Chanel and really high-end, well-known brands, but a lot of them were carrying smaller contemporary brands. And so maybe working with these boutiques that have a following around their boutique aesthetic that feature younger brands, that might be a good wholesale outlet. But basically it's anything that is not your own direct-to-consumer channels, but it could look any number of ways, from a pop-up, but basically someone that's going to pay you wholesale for the goods up front.
Are you aware of certain online wholesalers that are more emerging brand friendly than boutiques? I've just found, I did coterie a couple times, and I've just found, excuse me, boutiques to be very schizophrenic in their loyalty and in their ability to pay their bills. So yeah. I'm very interested in learning more about, you know, who some of those online wholesale partnerships for emerging brands are, and how to get in touch with them.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to paste this. My internet is being a little slow. Again, I don't unfortunately have direct experience with these brands, but I thought this was an interesting article because there were 1 or 2 based in New York, and a lot of them were based around the country, and their boutique e-commerce presence was, you know, pretty legit looking, and they had an interesting portfolio of younger brands. But you bring up a good point in terms of their financial health, and like, I don't know what their terms are in terms of, do they pay in 90 days or, you know, something more favorable in terms of cash on hand. Oh, here we go. Sorry. It's an article in Vox. 1 second. Oh, my internet. Sorry, ladies. 1 second. I'm really trying to paste it for you so that we can have you can have a visual. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat right now. This was some research that I did yesterday with some of my colleagues. In case it's helpful, we found this website. Does everyone see the link? So again, I've only ever worked with sort of bigger enterprise brands, but I thought that this article was interesting because it kind of profiled each of these indie boutiques. And they're located all around the country, like Tucson, Seattle, New York, Boston, etc. And so they're also, as opposed to trying to reach out to like a buyer at a Barney's or whatever, I would imagine their store owner buyer is the same person, and they're probably receptive to inbound, you know, brands that would be a point of differentiation for them. So just sharing it in case it's helpful and relevant to your categories.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Did it go through fine?
Yes, I have it. Thanks.
Okay. So the mentee that I mentioned in through XRC Labs, she also, and this may not be the right channel for everyone, but I know she sold or did an event through the shopping channel, which online kind of seems a little bit like a HSN type of vibe, but they do have any number of brands there. The thing is, they sell the gamut of like jewelry, clothing, everything. But I do know that her shopping channel promotion was successful, and she was also a one woman shop with very limited marketing spend. And so at least I know for her size of business, which might mirror a lot of your own, and I don't think that she had, you know, she had a factory relationship and so forth, but it's not like she had a fulfillment center that was doing some elaborate drop ship for her. So they may be more welcoming to those of you who are like working out of a studio and basically like fulfilling your own orders yourselves, where I think she basically got visibility akin to Amazon into what her orders were, and she did the fulfillment. Actually, no, I think she actually sold them a bulk number of units, and then they reported to her sales quantity. But I'm not sure if there was an RTV requirement, meaning like anything they didn't sell, they could give her the inventory back, which I feel like a lot of retailers will do for young brands. Is they'll give you the opportunity to just showroom it, basically. Like, we'll put it on our site, whatever sells you get the credit for, and whatever doesn't, you have to be willing to take the inventory risk on the back end. And, you know,
Sure.
But kind of related to that, since there were a lot of questions around inventory management, and I'm also happy to, I realize this is kind of hard to do with such a large group of people that might have disparate needs, but I'm happy to follow up with people one-on-one where they have specific questions. But since it is really, oh, sorry. We had a question. Are there any industry benchmarks for what sales volume a brand should be doing during holiday compared to average revenue throughout the rest of the year? So I've only ever worked on apparel, menswear, kidswear, and a small personal care products business. In the sleepwear category, and I think this is it can be akin to footwear, just because like boots and stuff like that are a higher price point. But fall in general was like 65 to 75% of the business, and holiday was a big chunk of that. Like, you obviously might get a pop during back to school, but I think that your November, December timeframe is like the lion. Like if 70% of your business is in the last 6 months of the year, the late October, November, December timeframe was a good chunk of that. But it is very category specific. So like in the brands and it's also price point driven. So in apparel, it's just like you have higher MSRP items. So like sweaters, layering things, outerwear, whatever, that also influence that number. But it is obviously also the biggest gifting season. So it is something that you want to try to optimize for a lot earlier in the year. And to the point around, for a small brand, you may only have whatever, 12 or 14 items in your collection. So I think it is a useful exercise to, when you're building out your merchandising strategy and assortment, think about what your promotional item is going to be. And then for digitally native brands, it might be helpful for you to like look at Google results for like what are the top gifting keyword searches in your vertical, and see what is brand right for you and sort of engineer into a promo item that you can try to drive traffic around through SEO, and just having like basically be the place that your consumer is looking, like whatever type of keywords they're entering to try to find your item, if that makes sense. But we almost always engineered a promo holiday item, knowing that it would bring traffic to the site, and then hoping that once you got there, we could do the whole people who bought this also wore it with this or merchandised it with this, and do more of a bundling. But there is something to having sort of your hero item for holiday season, because everyone's kind of either looking for like the deal, or they're looking for, I'm not saying you have to price it at a deep discount, but they were looking for that like price value relationship. And there's ways that you could engineer a product that have a good markup, but you're still able to have the consumer feel like they're getting, you know, a value, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so like, again, a lot of my background is in menswear, so this wasn't holiday season, but as I'm sure you can imagine, Father's Day is a big thing for us, right? So even when you're dealing with like big department stores, they're always like, okay, 1 million brands put a polo on sale for Father's Day. That's so boring, right? So if you know that your competition is all putting out the same type of like been there, done that, played out item, how can you do a twist on, okay, something that's better than a tie, or a twist on a tie, or better than a polo, or a twist on a polo, and then you work with your factories to source into that. So like you can sell an aesthetic, and you can probably get like a quality that the consumer feels like has, in the case of apparel, like a good hand feel, and the consumer doesn't feel that it's cheap. But if you plan it in advance, you can have a differentiated item that will bring people to your site, and then also get them to consider the rest of your collection. And you kind of like bake the profitability discount or whatever into that, assuming that it's going to drive the volume. And it's not a loss leader, but it is sort of a value price leader that brings people into your mix. Does anyone have specific like tied to the whole like merchandising, and how do you buy right going into the holiday? Again, like I know there's certain things we're in December, so we can't affect now, but sort of lessons that you're learning in the season, and you want to know maybe how to manage better for it next year. Like I know Leona brought up specifically inventory planning as a thing that she wanted to talk about, but did any of you find yourself in the position where you either didn't have enough goods or didn't plan well enough in advance, or are you all in the position where you have too many goods and you're trying to now figure out ways to sell out?
That's me. I'm trying to get rid of inventory.
Yeah, this is Shelly, right?
Yep.
Okay. So like I said, in your case, check out this article, because I do think that some of these boutiques were in the price point that you mentioned, and were like contemporary. labels, and I don't know how quickly you can do it, but one of the colleagues that I sit next to in my part-time job now, he's like an Amazon expert, and I know that like Amazon doesn't feel right for brands, but it can, I don't know, I guess I would say at least evaluate it, because it can at least be a way to go someplace where consumers are already going to shop. I will say
it's a great point. I mean, early on before Amazon, you know, where Nike and everyone kind of turned over their rights to sell on Amazon to Amazon. Yeah. I was on Amazon and I had a storefront. And again, I think it becomes money, right? Because to get your product up high on a search, I mean, if someone's searching for a cashmere scarf or a black t-shirt, let's say, how are they going to find Alchemy Detroit unless I'm, you know, churning in tons of money to come up on the search? And so again, for me, it was one of those things where I would have to have like almost a part-time or full-time person totally working on my Amazon store. But, you know, and now I don't know if you have to be invited back on, but even Etsy or Amazon, I was thinking about trying out again, because it is challenging to find those places, right, where an emerging brand can get some recognition or some visibility without hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and lead generation and conversion.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you. Amazon, like, that's their whole hustle, is like they don't do any of the work. Even when you're like an enterprise level brand selling into them, I mean, you really kind of have to manage your own business. So it does become its own job in addition to managing your direct to consumer site. I know people who have like cracked the code, granted not in apparel, but like I have a friend who he sells kind of like these do-it-yourself, like grow your own herbs in your home type of kits.
Yeah.
And Amazon has worked well for him. But actually for some of the apparel brands, especially I think a few of you, as a part of your USP, you talk about like American made or like ethical sourcing and stuff like that. I wasn't sure how you guys would feel about it, but I did think about Etsy only because I feel like the Etsy customer values that more, like craftsmanship and like made in a way that's like giving back to the community and stuff like that. But I don't know, I'm not familiar enough with like their metrics and like how profitable that is based on
Etsy is getting a lot more sophisticated, just because I'm working on a personal project where I'm using Etsy to deal with vendors in Korea. And, and Etsy is getting very sophisticated as well, in the sense that, you know, if you want your shop to get favorited and to get more visibility, you buy ads and, you know, you get sponsored so that your brand, if someone's searching for a t-shirt, pops up on the right-hand side or the left-hand side kind of thing too. So again, I do think a lot of people are on Etsy. I think Pinterest can be a great way to drive people to your website as well. And again, all of these separate, you know, levers are full-time jobs basically.
Yeah, I understand.
You know what I mean? To really do it well, I think. So for someone who is bootstrapping like myself, who's kind of a one-woman show, you're kind of all over the place, and which one do I pick, right? Which one do I kind of focus on the most? Because I think if you try to focus on all of them, and if you're not getting written up in some of the bigger, you know, features, it can be real challenging. At least that's what I found, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, and I'm sure I am. But I'd love to hear what other people are doing, you know?
No, definitely. Before, I do want to open up the call to thoughts from other people, but one thing that occurred to me, I don't know if this will work, but based on what I know from an enterprise level, I'm curious it will. So remember how I brought up sort of having your, not to use Alyssa's brand name, but your hero style for the season, where you've sort of engineered into it as like a differentiated, but like every customer type of basic or key item style, whatever that means for your brand, whether it's home or apparel or beauty or skincare or whatever. So even though Amazon has really made a push to go into fashion, it's funny because for me as a merchandise planner trying to do a proper merchandise planning strategy with them for fashion, they don't actually favor newness. Like their algorithm is all about how many reviews you have and like how many clicks you've had on that given item's page. So even if you don't want to, I think it may not be worth the effort to manage like a breadth of a collection on Amazon, but if whatever your two like core key items are, and I don't know if this is less work or if it's the equal amount of work no matter how many SKUs you have, but if you have a core key item that you can drive replenishment and a lot of reviews, and you're not you're not regularly updating the model or the fabric or anything such that the item description can stay the same. That could be a good strategy for Amazon to just put those hero items on there, and at least that way, if people have that, they'll know your brand, and then they might, because it isn't worth it to have like your latest launch collection because it will get no hits. Like their entire algorithm is based on like life on the site and level of engagement with an item. So it's really great for, you know, core plus, as I like to call it. So like stuff that, you know, whether it's like a cool, sleek black tight or like core workwear items or something really really core, but with a twist. So it'll stand out from every other black pant on the site. Sure. That's kind of one way to angle on Amazon.
Great feedback. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear from the rest of the group in terms of some of these topics, like what have you guys tried and what has or hasn't been successful? Anybody? No? I'm going to start like cold calling.
I think one thing that worked for me, and I just DM'd you, Shelly, because it's Alice. So primarily what I was selling was like women's shirts, which were just a challenging thing to sell online. And last year I really had kind of breakthrough where I started selling these mohair scarves, and they're just like brighter color. The price point was lower, under $200. I did free shipping, and I sold out on Instagram. Like basically it was the first time that I had not enough inventory. And so for holiday, I like ran out and I had some inventory issues. Now this year I reordered, but I've been having problems with my order. So I haven't even gotten it yet. So hopefully I can still get it through. But basically I just focused all of my Instagram posts on showing these scarves like in different ways, and was like DM for info, and I ended up selling like probably like 80-90% of it just through DMs on Instagram. So people would DM me, and if they wanted it, I asked them to send me their email, and I would just send them, I would generate an invoice in Shopify. So it was kind of like really low touch. So they would just like reply to my DM me, say like, oh, do you have the scarf in this color? And I would say, yeah, like what's your email? I'll send you a link to check out. And I found that to be like, it performed just way better than anything else that I've done.
Oh, amazing.
So I wonder if it was the combination of the low price point, no size, something that was visually like really rich to show, and then selling it directly through Instagram. That worked.
Well, I'm glad that worked, because that's kind of what I've seen too. And your point about no size is also huge, because then that's also less inventory risk for you. But like, to the point about like you had one big like statement piece in all of your visual and marketing, even if you may not have the coffers of like, you know, whatever, a Chanel, was around that item. And if you showed sort of the lifestyle around that mohair scarf and all the colors, like that's kind of what I was getting at in terms of having like your hero style, because as much as your collection is beautiful and amazing, like you have to get people in through one thing, right? So like, it's sort of what can you stand behind that people need scarves, but you had a differentiated twist with it being mohair and maybe bright colors. And to your point, you had sort of engineered it to be a good price, like a sharp entry price point for what that meant for your brand. Not saying it was cheap, but an entry price point. And I think that's like sort of key to get people to then say, oh, what else is this brand about? as opposed to like, it's just harder nowadays, I think, to get people to invest right away in like the breadth of your collection. So like, think about what you can own and what the best item is that you can do well with. I'm curious why the transition, or is this, Alice, the business that you said you're phasing out of from the past 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of a breakthrough realization, and I was like, okay, so selling the clothing was challenging. So I was like, there are two different pathways. The thing that was working for the clothing was selling to a higher end customer who wasn't as price sensitive. And so I thought about moving forward with that customer. Like the solution would be to raise my prices because I would just get a better margin, design more collections because I had seasonless collections. I was like, if I have multiple collections a year, I can go back and do the same trunk shows with the same women 2 to 4 times a year and increase my sales volume like 2 to 4 times, and then go wholesale. So that was like one path. And then with accessories, I realized I thought that my email list and Instagram following was kind of useless in terms of driving sales based on past experience. But with the mohair, I realized that I actually could sell through Instagram, but I kind of chose that item. Like I believe in the mohair scarves. I love them, but I definitely chose it because I was like, okay, I think I need something less expensive. I need something that's going to be really like eye-catching on Instagram. And I kind of decided to make them for that reason. And I was like, I could build a business out of what I think I can sell on social media, but that doesn't always align with what I'm excited about. So like that one product was an intersection, but I just like I didn't see that as like the most exciting way to run a business. That like, it's really hard. It's really, really hard to run a small business selling clothing and accessories to women. And it's been like a slog and really challenging in many ways. And that just didn't seem like it would just be like a job, I think, for me. And so I wanted to do something that had more potential, was more scalable. And so like an opportunity came about to like partner with somebody to do this like footwear brand. So that's kind of why. But I think like there is a way. Like a friend of mine has a new brand and she launched it a couple months ago. Her price point's pretty good, but it was still challenging. Like she has a lot of hard to fit items like jumpsuits. And so I was like, you have to do something for holiday. And she didn't really have anything. She had these earrings that she found on Etsy. And I was like, why don't you just ask them if they can sell it to you? You can mark it up or get a discount from them, but that's like a giftable item. And she posted the other day, she had sold out of 2 colors of these earrings. It's just like something that's like below your usual price point, something that's really like, you know, like Instagram friendly and has no size. I think that's like the answer for holiday, but, and also for pop-ups too. It's hard in holiday pop-ups when you have things that people need to try on. It's so much easier when you have like easy giftable items that's going to fit them or whoever they're buying it for.
Alice, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did you find that pop-ups like in New York that you got the right ROI on your investment?
It was really a crapshoot. It was like sometimes you would go and say like, oh, I'm just going to do this because I'm not doing anything else today. I'm tired. I don't want to be here. And then suddenly you have like an amazing day of sales. And then there are times when I would like do so much prep and like even sometimes when there was traffic and you just wouldn't sell. I did a pop-up shop for 3 months. And I think like there it was kind of like being in the same neighborhood for a longer period of time, maybe like 6 weeks was valuable because it took time for people to come in off the street. But at a certain point, you kind of like exhaust the people in the neighborhood and everyone's already been there. Everyone's going to buy from you, is going to buy, has already bought. That's what I saw. But for the 1 to 2 day pop-ups, it's really just like, I felt like there was almost no way to tell. And I did like the same event 2 years in a row. And 1 year I had only clothing and it was like women's shirts. There was no dressing room and I had my best day of sales. And it was like in a school gymnasium. I'd had like an incredible day of sales. The next year I went back with like $200, $150 scarves in bright colors. And I did like almost nothing. So I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I did a pop-up in Soho a couple of years ago. And again, it's, people reaching out, we love your brand, all this hype. And then there's really no logistics behind success, right? Like you talked about as far as merchandising and how you figure out if you are really going to be a good fit. And at this stage, I don't have $3,000 to $10,000 every season to have that crapshoot. And so I love what you're talking about as far as like finding that one piece that you could potentially, it's brand awareness, but it's also something that can move and can scale, because if you need more of it, you can hopefully get it relatively quickly as far as inventory. So thank you for that feedback and insight.
I feel like for like pop-ups, for me, I realized like spending a lot of money up front on a pop-up was never really worthwhile.
Yeah.
And like, I just started looking for opportunities where it was either lower upfront costs or some kind of like commission structure.
Sure.
Because I just found it so difficult to predict how I was going to do. So.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. I just want to direct your attention. I sent in the chat. I don't know if you guys have heard of Retail X, this angel investor, Sapna Shah. She invests in retail-based tech. Anyway, I met her and I helped her once with like a financial planning workshop for B2C. And I asked her about a couple of outlets, to the point about what are some channels that are favorable to young brands. And I guess this is one of her investments. It's called Doe, but it basically is a platform to promote female brands to female consumers who want to buy from women. So it's just worth checking out if you haven't heard of it, to get your brand affiliated.
Thank you. I just signed up.
Oh, awesome. And there's also, I don't know what her onboarding process is, but in terms of other brands for her merchandise assortment, but Alice Cottrell is another founder within the Dreamers and Doers Network who has a site called Outgift, which obviously would play nicely into holiday gifting. So you may want to reach out to her regarding, especially if you have those sort of key hero items, as we've been talking about, in terms of getting on her platform, whether now or in the future. And then, sorry, one more comment around, and I'll put that in the chat too. This is her platform. And then that investor that I mentioned, she brought up this concept of working within physical spaces. And I think the part about like registration fees that Alice mentioned is a good point in terms of whether you're really going to get your return on investment. But if they do have a model that's more like a % of revenue, maybe it could be interesting. But she mentioned Bulletin, Neighborhood Goods, and Leap are physical space, and I'll write it down here also. Neighborhood are all physical spaces that young brands can use for offline distribution. So just again, for your FYI, I tried to crowdsource some information where it wasn't my immediate knowledge to help you guys based on some of the questions that were put through.
Thank you so much for these great resources. This is Elisa. I just have a quick question. I loved the story that you mentioned about the brand that reached out to you as an influencer and offered you a deep discount, and then a part of the sale if you shared it and drove traffic to them. Do you mind if I ask what the discount was that they offered, and then also what % of sale, and then how they track it? So was it like a unique link or a promo code, or?
I think it is a promo code, but I didn't go through with it because they weren't really. I looked at their catalog, and it was more like casual than kind of. I was like, if I'm going to shop, I would want it to sort of align with like my actual spending priorities in the near term. But hold on, I'm going to pull up the message now. Okay, so basically they said ambassadors receive 50% off their first order and a 40% lifetime discount. Then they said you also get a 25% personalized referral code for your followers, which you'll get paid 30% commissions. And then they also offered, they said they do a $500 value monthly giveaway for one lucky ambassador, but it sounds like they have hundreds probably to spend in their store. And then they just say, in return, all we ask is you tag us in your photos while wearing our products.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This is Evelyn, and I actually have a question. Alice, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. So I've had an experience now hosting my own pop-ups. I'm about to host my third this year. So if people want to talk about that a little bit more, I can provide more insights. But my question is actually about the trunk shows, because you mentioned you did the trunk show. So this is kind of a stupid question, and I know I can Google it, but I'm confused a little bit around the idea of like what a trunk show is. So from my understanding, a trunk show is actually like where you might partner with a boutique and then go in the boutique and host like a day where you like sell your items and introduce your brand to other people. And I am curious about that process. Like, if you could just explain a little bit more about that, that would be super helpful. Like, how did you select the boutiques? And obviously that comes down to target demographic and like if the items match what they currently have, but like how is that, like, did those work, and like how did you set those up, and who did you partner with, and like.
Okay, so I actually didn't do that. So I think like I did go down that route a little bit, but it was hard. It was basically like I contacted a few boutiques, and I did it outside of New York City because I thought it would be easier. And that was where I wanted to capture more customers. So I was looking at like Connecticut, Long Island, like basically like wealthy towns, and like Westchester, Connecticut, Long Island, like the local boutique with contemporary women's wear. And I got a little bit of response and had some meetings, and I did one of those and it was okay. But they're like that, I don't know if it's normal, but like the commission structure that they wanted, I felt was like too high for that kind of one day event.
Yeah.
What I meant was, so originally I came about these in a couple of different ways, but so by trunk shows, I meant like going to people's houses, going to like wealthy women's houses during the day when they hosted their friends to come over and have lunch, or like do like a afternoon hors d'oeuvres and champagne situation. And I came about them through a few different ways. I think there was this company that now no longer operates, but they were organizing trunk shows. And so there were a couple that I came across that way. And then that brought me to a like group of moms in Tribeca downtown who like invited me to do this like holiday trunk show at their kids' private school. And then that turned into like, that's kind of how it was, like one led to another. And then another one came about because I was like, oh, I need to get more of these. And I started talking to a bunch of friends about leads, and one of their sisters is like an Upper East Side mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I got one that way. But that was like for a very specific, it's like kind of like ladies who lunch, I guess. So that's how I found those trunk shows. And I think there are definitely like ways in for that kind of thing. So that was like packing stuff up and bringing racks and clothes to somebody's home
right
on a weekday. And like I found that well, sometimes worked really well, and sometimes it just depended on the host. So what I found determined success or failure there was like the host's example. So if they were just like serving food and chatting with their guests and didn't start trying on the clothes, nobody else would try on the clothes. They might come and browse. But if the host started like taking her clothes off and putting some clothes on and telling her friends you should wear something, then that's when I would sell a lot. So that was like hit or miss based on the host. But I found that to be a really good way to sell. And then Alexandria, like what you mentioned with the Instagram thing, I actually tried something like that once and it worked moderately well. It wasn't during holiday. But I was using an app at the time that let me look at followers and sort them by how many followers they had. That app lost the functionality. So I'm sure there's somebody else that can do it, or you can do it manually. But basically I took all my followers that had more than like 1,000 followers, and then I sorted them into groups of like, okay, if you have more than 100,000 followers or 50,000 followers or 10,000. And then I generated unique promo codes, and I basically just manually direct message them. And I was like, okay, if you have more than, I don't know, 50,000 followers, I'll give you like a big, like I'll basically give you like a big gift card. I was like, here's a gift card. Like, I really like your style. Here's the gift card for like $100 or whatever I thought would be enough of an incentive. And then for some of the followers with less of a following, I would offer like a, $40 or $50 gift card, because my, like the least expensive item was like $115. So I knew I would at least make a little bit of margin. So, but I presented it like a gift card instead of a promo code. And I did get a few orders, including from some like influencers. So, but I didn't require them to do anything in return. So that was something that I did to drive sales during a month that was kind of slow, but I didn't think about trying it during holidays. So that could be interesting.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I love your strategy too. I think it all depends on like what the markup is in your items. But it's a good, like a % off if you have a good weighted average markup across your assortment. But to your point, like if offering a gift card where you know that your minimum MSRP is higher than that, they still have to make a purchase at the end of the day, and it gets them into your site. And then it, hopefully the content they post reflects, I just bought right?
Yeah. And then, somebody's like actually, they're still spending money. So they're actually like invested in what you're doing. You're not like just blindly gifting to influencers. Yeah. And I think especially if you're in a situation where like as a small business owner, you often are, where you're like, okay, I have inventory and I need money and I need X money by X date. Yeah. It's like a way to move through some inventory that also contribute back into like influencer marketing, hopefully, even if you're not making much of a margin.
One other thing that I wanted to just mention that tied into something you said about going out of town to do some trunk shows, or like just places where not everyone is trying to capture the same consumer. I worked with a woman who basically specializes in like cool blazers and workwear pieces. And something that she told me she did instead of a traditional retail trunk show, which I thought was really smart, is she's like, if I know that I'm targeting like working women between like 25 and 40, she would actually go to industry conferences and pay for the booth, where most of the vendors were like service providers or like, like business services. And she was the only fashion company that was present. So she really had no competition. And so like, let's say she went to like the Association of Journalists Northeast Regional meeting or something like that. And she had all these cool like sheath dresses and layering pieces that were good for work or good for camera. And all the other vendors were, like I said, related to the trade or related to work, like business services. She told me that was a really successful strategy for her, as opposed to going into a crowded room where there are a bunch of other brands. And so in terms of return on investment, she was like, it was worth it for me to go to the conferences where my customer is, but aren't necessarily going there to shop. But I was kind of like an unexpected surprise amongst the sea of vendors.
Did she actually make direct sales, or was it brand awareness? Like, did she collect email addresses?
She took product with her. So she sold stuff on site. And then I think she also did get like email signups and stuff.
What was the brand?
I could tell you, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But her name is Lio, and I think her brand name has her first name in it. Hold on one second. Lio G, Laygo, sorry, Layo-G.com. And she has like here, I'll type it in the chat. Sorry. Okay.
I thought about doing that too, but then the problem with that is like it's hard to get. So I make pants primarily. I mean, I have other tops, but like that's where we get the best traction.
Yeah.
It's hard to get people to try pants on in an event.
Yeah.
So got to some of my other comments about like hosting events. Like I've had some success with them, so there's like something there, but it's like really hard to get women to try on pants. Just have a heads up, people. Like,
no, that's a good point. I think when she had her full collection, she realized that what her consumers were really buying and coming back and doing repeat purchases were like her twist on like blazers or like layering things.
Yeah,
and so
things you can throw
obviously
on.
easier to try on at a trade show or conference.
Right.
But I know people that like back in the day used to do like premium denim trunk shows. And
Yeah.
to your point about trying on pants, like it's like all these women running around like half naked is a bit more of a chaotic thing. But then, you know, I actually was like a huge paper denim and cloth person because I went to one of those and finally like did it. And so I was loyal to that brand while they were active as a result of that. But it is a harder thing just because the logistics of trying on pants and like
Yeah.
Sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up too. Just in terms of stuff maybe you could do now. I realize like paying a fee to participate in anything can be prohibitive, but one of my old colleagues when I worked in finance, his wife had launched a line, and she basically would get like a friend of hers that had a common room in like an apartment building in Chelsea, and get other designer friends of hers. Like this could just be a last minute way to move inventory. Like basically a lot of you have some women's wear overlap. So you could get a friend who like allows you to get a common room in a luxury apartment building relatively inexpensively, and then use your collective email list to drive people for like a trunk show sample sale. And they really had like no overhead because they didn't pay for the space. Really, it was like a friend doing a favor of renting the room for them. And then by having a couple designers, especially if they didn't have conflicting assortments together, I know I bought a dress or two. So it seemed to be successful for them. I don't know what their final numbers were at the end of the day, but it's something that could probably be put together quickly if you needed to.
So if anyone wants to talk about it longer, I definitely have a lot of data on that. And obviously our brands are different and I think it'll work for different brands. But essentially like the past 3 events I've done, with the last one being like a week from now, you guys are invited if you'd like to come, is that I've gotten the space for free. I've gotten alcohol vendors. I pulled in other brands for the brand partnership aspect of it, which I love that part, like being able to curate kind of this experience that's around brands that are similar to like complementary to mine and things like that. And I would say that so far, at least for us, like I'm at a point where like they're not driving a ton of direct sales. So like there's some awareness aspects to it that I think are valuable. I think that what's happening is like I can only partner with other brands that are in a similar position to me, right? Like they're like in the growth stage, they're not well known. And so like we go in together, we like do our respective lists and share audiences. But like what would be really valuable is partnering with someone bigger. The problem is like getting the attention of someone bigger and trying to tell them that you can offer them something. And I've even tried that. Like I've reached out to a few brands where I'm like, I can get a space for free, I can get alcohol, like I can bring a lot to the table, but they know that their audience is so valuable. And like sometimes they don't want to share the shopping event because then if someone has a limited amount of money, right, like they're only going to choose like 1 or 2 things. Yeah. Like theirs. So if they're at that stage where they're big enough, they want to do events by themselves. And so the event stuff has been a little bit of I wouldn't say it's struggle, because for me it's easy to do this stuff. I have a background in event planning and things, but it's like it's time consuming for sure. Yeah. And I'm not sure I'm seeing the return on it that I like want so far. Just as a heads up for people who want to talk about it more, they are valuable, but I'm not I just like I'm at a point where I like really have to think about where I'm spending my time and energy, and I'm not sure that I would do this again. So one thing
that's great feedback. Great feedback. Because it's exhausting to pack up all your inventory and go sit somewhere and then, you know, not know what the return's going to be. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, a note about that too. Like we don't take things well, this is actually not sure what to do about this. So we have been taking things for people to try. So we do like a size run in our styles, and then we'll have them order there. And then we have discounts to like incentivize that. The thing is like people want to walk away with something is what I'm
absolutely.
So,
yeah, that's what I was.
So like it's kind of
right now
weird, but the people who buy stuff, so we have had people who buy stuff, but this is another data point. It's like my friends or friends of friends, which is great. Like I like the friends of friends aspect, but like if I'm going to grow my brand, I need to get away from my friends. Like my friends know about it. They'll support us, like whatever. But like I need like bigger market, right? So like it's just been kind of tough to figure out. But here's one more thing that I'm optimizing on just to share with the group. It really does come back to target audience, you know, and Alice was talking about this in terms of like trying to find, her demo was kind of like, given the price point, you know, a wealthier demo. So going into Tribeca, going on the Upper East Side, like that's super important. My demo is like women, professional women who are high income earners. And so I finally have had, like, I've been trying to do this for a while, but I'm going to try to go into a company and like host a pop-up like in the company itself. And like that to me, I am anticipating a much higher return. And here's the thing, if I can host a pop-up by myself in a company that is my target audience and it doesn't work, like I know that I don't really have a business, or like I have to change direction or something, because like that is so highly targeted for me that like if that doesn't work, then at least I have some data to go off of. Whereas like the events that I've been doing, anyone can come. So it's like weird to parse out the data, because like, you're like, well, it kind of worked, but it kind of didn't because of this or that. And it's like the target audience isn't as focused, because my events are really fun and awareness generating. So it's like the, you know, it's just like harder, like, because like the target audience is so loose, I can't tell if it's working or not, you know, whereas like this is so hyper targeted. So my main point, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but my main point is that if you guys are interested in events, a pop-up like mine, like a fun event might work, especially if you find brand partners. I think that there is potential there. My price point's very high and I'm trying to get women to try on pants, right? So it's like, I have these hurdles, but if that doesn't work, like, if there's something to the events, like trying to find your target audience and then like getting into like a very narrow group and hosting quality over quantity in terms of a event I think is going to be a better direction, at least for me.
I'm curious for your sort of going direct into companies, because I think that basically is taking the example of that girl Lio I mentioned and taking it one step further. So like, if I know that whatever, almost as a part of the work uniform, a sleek black pant is like the people that work at XYZ company or in XYZ industry, like that seems super smart. Is it the sort of employee engagement team or the wellness team that you, like when you're going into enterprise like that, who is your point of contact?
Okay, so that has been really hard, and I'm a very, like, I'm obviously a talker, you guys can see, and I love meeting new people and talking to people, and like I'm meeting new people all the time, just giving my business. Sorry, that's a lot of background. I could not find these people. Like I had connections. So for example, like I wanted to go into LinkedIn, because that's like a huge, like that is like a perfect target for me. Yep. And like I even know somebody at LinkedIn and she's like pretty high up in her department, but like sometimes these companies are so big, the people inside don't know where to go. So it's like, I was like, like, can you help me figure this out? And she's like, honestly, we do have events like that, but I never attend them. And then like, she's like, maybe it's HR. Like, I don't know. Like maybe we have an event planner. I don't know. And I was like, well, can you look for me? The thing is like, we're friends, but not super close yet. So like people only, I find that people will do like one small step of a favor, but it's like hard to get them to follow through. And like, that's obviously no judgment. Like everyone's so busy and she travels a lot or whatever, but that has been a big pain. So I don't have like a direct answer, but like it's honestly, this is so generic and I apologize to everyone, but you have to like find your advocate, like find somebody who is like willing to go to like, to follow through for you. And like, you know what I'm finding, here's another learning for maybe several people can share in this, like you're going to have to give your stuff away. If you're in a consumer product or like a fashion company, like you base your favors on like the items that you can kind of like give. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean it like in a really kind of, I don't know, sleazy way, but it's like, so for example, this person that I actually have a meeting today with someone from Goldman. This is like where I'm trying to go. And like, because I know that she's like willing to advocate for me, because she was so interested in what we did, I was like, you know what, like I'm going to bring you a pair of our pants. Like it's actually a huge cost to us because like we're still really small, right? So like our margins aren't great. Like we're a high price point. It's not free, you know, but like I am like, thank you so much. And then I show my thanks by like providing something, and it incentivizes someone to even carry it out, because also if she wears our stuff and loves it, it's going to go further than just her. And I think I was aware of this going into fashion because I had done some influencer work and I understand kind of this like bartering trade system that happens within fashion. But which is why I had some like lower price point items in my collection to sort of fulfill that need. But we're going a little bit away from those and like focusing on pants, and that's my high expense item. But now I'm just at a point where I'm like, if someone can really do me like a solid favor and like there is potential for it to grow, like just like the things I have are like, I have inventory, I have brand partnerships, and like you have to think about all the things that you have and then think about how to like use them to get like what you want. And again, that's generic, but like if you're in consumer products, just like give your stuff out, make it strategic, but just like make sure it gets out there.
The reason why I asked you is because a friend of mine was consulting and marketing for a cold brew startup, and they were trying to do the same thing where there was a bit more infrastructure in our company for that, because like as a part of your corporate health and wellness fairs, like we would have free massages and they would give away like healthy popsicles and all that stuff. So even with that, like there was already an infrastructure for, we bring in product companies this time of the year as a part of like the healthy eating or whatever. Yeah. And I am her good friend, so I like followed up like 5 times, and it was even challenging. I knew there was a wellness team, and it was still challenging to know who the pinpoint person was. But I do know from having attended things like the wellness fair, if you get in, that is a great exposure, because it's basically like for the employees, usually there's an incentive for them to go and participate because it's part of an engagement metric. So either you'd get like some discount on your insurance, or it shows that you got your biometrics screened or whatever in this particular example. But yeah, the path to finding that contact can be a challenge.
You can use LinkedIn and look at titles, right? But yeah, you still need an advocate, because if you like, the cold, like having a warm intro at least is like way better than the cold, and the cold can work too. But like, yeah, I think having someone internally and then incentivizing them to follow through is like really helpful.
Evelyn, I have 2 thoughts for you. So one, in terms of this contact that you have at Goldman, that might be a good advocate for you. So this is my thing. If you're having trouble getting women to try on pants, and I will tell you that I've had trouble in somebody's home getting women to like try on shirts, and shirts I think are easier than pants. Are you going to be able to get these women during their workday at their office to like take their pants off? What if you asked this contact at Goldman if she'd be willing to host something in her home for her friends, who may or may not work in finance? If she really loves your pants, if she'll invite like 10 of her friends over, and therefore like her friends that are coming over know that she's doing like a trunk show for these pants. Maybe some of them work at other organizations, and if they become customers of yours, then you can like use that, like ask a second favor, like, or get that first favor from somewhere else to get into the office. But I wonder if it's going to be easier for you to actually like convert customers and get like meaningful interactions with these women through a more like personal at-home event.
Yeah, thank you so much for that point. I actually am discussing that with her as well today. So my thing right now, just to share again, is like, as a new brand, I'm sure we're all aware of this, you just have to experiment. So I've experimented with these like kind of fun pop-up like shopping events that are like food and alcohol friendly and all that stuff. And then I'm like kind of probably departing from that, and then going to your point, Alice, like very targeted, and kind of going back to the idea of like quality over quantity in terms of like target audience. So I have 2 events coming up that I'm experimenting with. Hopefully one is in the workplace, like you said, which will probably be more awareness, right? Like I probably will not get women to try on pants, but if I can get their email, like that would be super incredible to me. And then, yeah, trying to host like a smaller kind of like sip and shop, or, something that's in someone's home. Which I'm curious, like, again, for maybe more feedback from you, like maybe this is a personal thing, and trust me, I'm like willing to go all the way. I have no problem, like I'm shameless, but like I'm wary of making it like a Tupperware party. You know what I mean? Like kind of like getting all these women in a room and being like so hardcore selling about it, and like it doesn't feel.
I think it's for a certain like demographic, it's a really normal thing. Like I have a friend who has a jewelry line. It's quite expensive, and she has some like fine jewelry items, and she launched her brand. She started selling like at like a farmer's market, but like in a rich like summer Hamptons-y, like not Hamptons, but like in a farmer's market in like a wealthy summer area. And then she like needed money to buy materials for a brand, so she made these like necklaces for $1,000 each, hosted like a trunk show at somebody's house, sold 10 of these, and then used that money to buy the material she needed to go. Like, I think it's actually like a very normal thing where like everybody wants to host and everybody loves to shop. And so they'll just like take turns having events and like bringing in more things to buy. Cause that's just like
a life.
Like a life. Yeah. Seems like a really nice life.
Well then.
the other thing that I was going to say was that, because I was kind of looking in this direction of like, how else can I reach women in this demographic? And then how do I reach the working women?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these women, and some of them who were working women, like they work with personal shoppers or stylists.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for a black pant, which is like, you can find if they have brands that they love and trust, like it's much easier for them to just go buy a pant from a brand they already love and trust.
Right.
So to get these women into a new brand, they need somebody to be like, I found this amazing thing. I'm really into it. You need to try it. And I feel like that's either going to be one of their friends or the professional that they hire to help them find new things to wear. And if like, this is not something that I've executed, but it's something that I like started. And I was like, okay, like compile a list of personal shoppers and stylists and people that like professionally clean out people's closets and reorganize.
Mm-hmm.
Like try and set up meetings with them to show them the collection and maybe even gift some of these people if they respond well to it.
Yeah.
And then see if you can get in on like a commission-based structure. If like you can give them some inventory and they bring it to their appointments, or if they send like a rack of clothes to somebody's doorman, like maybe your pants are in there. So people can try on like an item that's hard to look exciting on a rack. Like if you're at a trunk show, even if somebody like sees like a ruffly pink thing, like that's going to be easier to spot than a pair of black pants. But like if a pair of black pants is sitting on a rack of clothes that they're going to sit there and try on and like throw in the pile of stuff they want to keep, that might be easier.
That is a great point. Thank you for sharing that.
Related to that, there's a woman in Dreamers and Doers who I've talked to before on merchandising stuff. I just sent it in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Nicole, and Steppy Style is exactly that. She has like a closet edit business where she partners and brings in additional, like she has a lot of like well-known brands, I think, that she partners with, but she does closet edits for people and reintroduces new items and sort of works with the stuff that she wants to keep from their existing wardrobe and then, you know, refreshes it. So she might be someone worth reaching out to related to that specific point.
Thank you so much. Both of those points of feedback were so helpful. I have to think more about that, but this is great. Thank you.
Yeah. And actually related to, I know that you're testing sort of, is it worthwhile to go in-house into enterprise as opposed to like the more boutique, the more trunk shows that Alice is talking about. But I would think among your testing with enterprise, I understand why like LinkedIn is a good target, but I would also be curious, kind of like in contrasting a Goldman versus a LinkedIn. LinkedIn as a tech company, not really having a dress code. Right. I remember when I worked at Goldman, like it would be 1 a.m. and my analyst and I would be bored to tears and like waiting for someone to turn around comments or whatever. And we would go online shopping. And at that time, the lion's share of my wardrobe was like work-friendly stuff. Yeah. So I do think, not saying whether it's Goldman or whatever, but where there was an opportunity to buy something interesting, but like still fit the dress code, like that was a struggle for us. Like I feel like we just defaulted to like J. Crew or Banana a lot of the time because, you know, we just knew we could find something that was appropriate for the office. But I would have loved the opportunity where I was constrained 5 days or 7 days of the week to dress a certain way, to know kind of what new brands were out there, and also had the like money to spend, like if I was a consultant or whatever, you know, whatever those companies might be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely a great point. I gotta think a little bit more about that. I think this is a whole like brand positioning thing that I'm not gonna rope everybody into because I feel like brand conversations can take a very long time. But the unique thing about our clothing is that it's like what we say, which is becoming a pretty common thing, is like work to weekend. So like we have several different styles and they fulfill different purposes. So for example, we have like what I consider like a jean replacement. So it's in the casual style of a jean, but it's in like this technical fabric that's just a black fabric that makes it like really comfortable and like water and stain resistant stuff like that. So that's like a jean. So maybe that would work in like more of a LinkedIn area. But then we also have extremely tailored pieces, also in advanced, like these technical fabrics, and that would be more of the Goldman crowd. So like we can kind of, like experiment and toggle with that. But that's a great point, because what you just basically helped me think through is like, maybe I focus the people on a very specific part of the line and like don't even necessarily like highlight the rest of it, you know, as I go into the very specific places. So that's a great point. Thank you.
Well, I know we're at 10 o'clock. I mean, I'm happy to chat for a little bit longer, and I'm also happy to, it sounds like the collaboration that's happening here is really getting going, which is what I really wanted to foster, as well as, you know, share my personal fashion background. So in terms of wrapping up and moving forward, I am happy to have one-on-ones where I can be helpful. Like I said, I'm really more on like the merchandising, thinking about pricing, thinking about markup, thinking about promotional strategy from like what is a good amount to give away, like percentage off or that kind of thing. And then in terms of your all unique experiences in terms of promotion and finding your target customer, I definitely wanted to have this call to like foster that and keep that going. But unless anyone has any like urgent pressing questions, we can wrap it up, and then maybe we can create, I don't know, we're already on Dreamers and Doers, but like we can either use the shared Google Sheet to keep the chain going, or like a separate email chain, or whatever. I'm happy to.
Yeah, this is Shelly. I'm relatively new to Dreamers and Doers, but there do seem to be a significant amount of emerging brands. And I keep thinking in the back of my head, is there a way for us to have, I don't know, accountability partners or mentors or something as it specifically relates to, you know, an emerging brand. I'm part of another group, Startup Fashion, that Nicole is a member of Dreamers and Doers as well. And so that's a great group. But it would be nice to just, you know, I mean, there are some exciting things going on in Detroit too, with, you know, some hotels that are doing pop-ups and whatnot. And I would be happy to, if I felt like, hey, you know, the Hero backpack should be in this boutique, or you should talk to this person. I'm constantly thinking of other people that I think might be a good fit and saying, hey, you should really connect with this person or whatnot. So I don't know, just trying to support one another and help each other when we think that there's an opportunity, and, you know, just something within the Dreamers and Doers community. I don't know if that's appropriate, but I would be interested in doing something like that.
Yeah, I wonder if it makes sense to do like, Hannah, I wonder if it makes sense to do like a Slack group related to, or I don't know, do we already have the infrastructure for this, related to like young brands where people can specifically say like, my expertise, you know, for example, Evelyn, I'm really good at like putting on events. I know how to execute it. If you're ever doing your first event, reach out to me, and people can kind of share what their strengths are within this process of fashion merchandising and launching young brands. And then it's kind of like one repository, so that I like this. I love Shelly's point too about an accountability partner. Like if you're saying over the next month, I'm going to test and I'm going to refine whatever my target customer, and I'm going to do these 3 things. And then your partner kind of follows up with you and makes sure you execute. But I don't know if there's a more focused way to do that than in the existing D&D threads.
And you never want to be creepy and just kind of like stalk people in the group, you know what I mean? So it's nice to kind of have an opportunity for people who are truly willing to say, oh yeah, you know, I was a buyer at Barney's and here's something, you know, I don't know. It's just.
Yeah. Although I do think stalking people in the group, people are receptive to it.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'm new to the group, so I'm a little bit hesitant to, you know, be that person, but it's, you know, it's kind of nice to know the culture as well.
Another option that works for some people is to like put an.
Oh, you're a little bit echoing, Hannah.
Oh, sorry. Is it better?
Talk again.
Okay. Hello. Test.
Maybe you're not. Can you talk more into the speaker? You sound a little bit just like muted.
Mommy's AirPod things. Is it better at all?
We can hear you, so I guess we'll just be quiet.
Okay. Sorry. A really good way to go about that, it's not super structured in terms of like a platform or like a Slack channel, But if you put an ask out there, like if you have this very specific question about something, and then in return you can offer up something that you have an expertise in, then that's a really good way to facilitate an ask-offer relationship. And then it's also on the group page permanently kind of, so if someone goes through and has that question later, they can search it up and ask, or like search for your offers. That's one way of going about it. And we're also looking into having maybe like some sort of way where we can like pair people who are like newer to dreamers and doers. So we're still kind of exploring that.
I mean, I think I hear you on sort of the existing structure of the ask and offer, but I think that tends, in my experience, it's like sort of, this is my immediate ask, but like it would be, and I know we already do have the like member database where you can look up bios, but I do think like, and I'm happy to host it just like as a independent member or whatever, whether it be Slack or something else. It's cool to kind of have a vertical specific sort of ongoing means of communicating where we maybe have different threads. So it's like, one is like planning for holiday, one is for like physical events, one is for like partnerships or whatever. Does that kind of resonate with you guys?
Yeah, if that's something that you like, you know, like brands wanted to like put together, like you wanted to kind of head up, that would be amazing. If that's something that you wanted to kind of take on.
Okay. What is everyone else on the call? I don't want to like push anything, but I'm just wondering if more of a continuous versus the ad hoc. And we could also put it out in the ask for like whatever it is, like a Google group or a Slack thread or whatever, and just put it out for other members to opt in or not, but have it be a more recurring conversation. But I don't know. You guys.
I mean, even things like feedback, like, hey guys, you know, other industry people to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Does anyone want to, you know, take a minute to give me some honest, you know, critique? I don't know. I just think that going through the same things and sharing experiences. I mean, what you guys, Evelyn and Alice, what you guys have shared have been already helpful, and all of the links that you've sent, you know, even if it's once a quarter, I would be grateful for something like that, you know, where we support one another. But maybe people are too busy and they don't have enough time to commit. But I sometimes feel overwhelmed with all of the options in Dreamers right now.
Shelly, I will just say that, like, and this is coming from the perspective of somebody who's decided to like wind down a business as my full-time job.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really easy to get caught up in all the little things and pushing one step at a time. And I really like, this is my conclusion that I've drawn. I think like to actually have a chance at growing it, you can like continue to slog on. To me, it felt like a slog. If you really want to move the needle, I think like, it's not going to be like a single pop-up. It's not going to be like a single client. It's possible you could grow like through wholesale accounts, but then you have another whole cash flow issue. Sure. I really think like you have to figure out like how to push traffic through PR and I think like Alyssa, I feel like you're doing a really good job with that. I feel like I've heard about Hero, like
absolutely.
Here and there,
yep.
But I feel like it's really going to be about like finding traction and being able to continue to create good PR stories so you can drive traffic and really hit new audiences that you wouldn't otherwise be able to reach. Otherwise, you need to raise money so you can like probably pay for PR and then pay for paid advertising, or like do something that can go viral.
Great feedback. I appreciate
otherwise,
it.
like, it's going to be just like inching along.
No, I totally agree. And that's kind of where I am right now. So I hear you.
So I mean, I'm happy to sort of kick off, you know, calls a quarter or just do a post to kind of like resurface my old post and get people chatting again and sharing resources. But I don't want to take up more of your mornings. I know you all have appointments and stuff like that. I'm sure we all do. But I hope this was a helpful just dialogue with like-minded people trying to do amazing things in the own brand e-commerce space. And like I said, I'm always a resource for the things where are my strength. And so feel free to reach out to me one-on-one, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.